All right. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us this evening. This is an evening we've been looking forward to. Welcome to Lapid Leaders Africa 10-year celebration. We are celebrating a decade of impact, building the capacity of emerging African leaders. And tonight, it's such a pleasure to have you on set. We have a great webinar lined up, amazing guests, our pioneer alumni, who are doing amazing across the continent. And just before we begin this evening, I just hope we have had an amazing day. We have been well in our spaces. You could just post a meme, a greeting in the chat, just to say hi to everybody as we settle down and welcome each other in the next 1 or 2 minutes that we may be set to begin. Thanks for joining us. I see amazing people. I see Audrey Kaptum. I see Emmanuel Kiprono, Dennis Nderi, Kevin Mutia, Josh Oyugi. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Emerging Leaders Africa is here, and people are joining with their AI assistants. Thank you so much. So just post the greetings in the chat. Let's say hi. Let's say welcome. Let's see if you are here with us. Thanks, Emmanuel. Nice to meet you. Good. Hi, Eric. Glad to be on board too. Great. So I see many messages coming in. You could also share this with your friend that they may join as we begin, because no one can afford to miss this as we celebrate 10 years of Lapid Leaders Africa impacting emerging leaders that are going to change and transform the continent in their spaces. All right. Good. So by introductions, my name is Caleb Mukhwana. I am the Growth and Partnerships Officer at Lapid Leaders Africa. And we are glad to have you this evening for this anticipated webinar as we focus on the journey of transforming the emerging African leaders. At Lapid, we are celebrating a decade of impact, 10 years of amazing work, touching lives and jumpstarting young leaders who are making impact and transforming the continent in different sectors. And maybe it's your first time to join us, or you are coming back again. It's always good for us to say who we are. And I want to take this opportunity to invite my team members who are on board. I want to invite Leon to take us through an introduction of Lapid Leaders Africa, that we may watch a video of our story and know who Lapid is and prepare to get on board. As I said, please share this with your friends, invite them on board, and you can grab your coffee. I have mine, and be set for an amazing discussion, because today's guests, you cannot afford to miss. A very amazing conversation lined up, amazing people on board. So Leon, if you are ready, you can just take over and let us know the story of Lapid as we just get to start.
Okay, thank you so much, Caleb. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We do hope that it will be an insightful session, and We also hope that you learn a lot, even as we get to discuss and engage. So please feel free to interact with us on the chat box. If you have any questions, if you have, if there's that point that has been mentioned by one of the speakers and you really resonate, feel free to actually put it down in the comments. Let's learn from each other. Let's engage. So specifically for those who are interacting with Lapid for the first time, I would like to say welcome again. And I'd like to also just give a brief introduction about who we are as Lapid Leaders Africa. We also have an awesome video lined up that we just get to explain the story of Lapid. So I'd like to just give a brief and then also get to show you guys the video, because I believe it gets to just explain who we are as Lapid. And even as we engage, always keep in mind that these are the values that we have been upholding for the 10 years that we've been in existence. So Lapid is essentially a leadership development organization that is based in Nairobi, Kenya, and it is an exceptional platform that envisions, empowers, and nurtures the next generation of African leaders. Our mission revolves around fostering leadership skills, mentorship, and personal growth among young leaders across the continent of Africa. And we execute this mission through our leadership programs, and we have them split into two. So the first one is what we call the flagship programs, and that is split into 3 pillars, which we'll get into. And then we also have what we call the Lapid Crossroads program. So I believe I will get to display the video for us so that we can get to learn more, and then we can continue to also interact and also get to see what we have in store for you during the webinar. So allow me to project my screen.
My name is Esther Mwaniki. I am the founder and CEO of Lapid Leaders Africa. I founded Lapid Leaders Africa with the primary goal being to ignite prowess among the next generation of African leaders. Our goal was and still is to develop the next generation into change makers, people who will make a difference within the continent. We run 3 fantastic programs within Lapid Leaders Africa. The first one is Crossroads program, the second one is a digital apprenticeship program, and the last one is our flagship program. Crossroads program seeks to equip young professionals with management skills and leadership skills to enable them to be able to drive change within the organizations that they are in. We work with young professionals who have about 5 years of experience up until 10 years of experience. The digital apprenticeship program seeks to place our students within small and growing businesses, and the young leaders would then serve these businesses in terms of providing them with digital marketing and data analytics, and ultimately enable them to be able to build into the business's operational efficiencies and expand the markets that they serve. The last program, and is one of my favorite programs, is flagship program that serves university students and recent graduates and equip them with the skills, the mindset, the experiences, the networks that they need to be able to successfully transition to the marketplace and ultimately to be able to drive change in those marketplaces. The flagship program is broken down into 3 distinct pillars. The first one is Lead Self, Lead Marketplace, and ultimately Lead Africa. Lead Self is one of my favorite pillars, and it focuses on building the self-awareness of our young leaders. We also focus heavily on building their mindsets, and so we are constantly asking, what does it look like for you to understand the opportunities in Africa and ultimately to become a change maker within the continent? We attach the young leaders to coaches and mentors who work with them to enable them to understand themselves and ultimately to be able to be purposeful in their careers. The Lead Marketplace pillar focuses on job readiness and workplace preparedness. And because of that, we have a lot of conversations around personal branding, around and we enable them to get career coaching that helps them to be able to understand themselves from a career perspective. Lastly, we have the Lead Africa pillar, and the Lead Africa pillar focuses on helping the young leader understand themselves as a Pan-African. And because of that, we equip them with entrepreneurial skills, we attach them to various businesses and expose them to various businesses where they're able to see the practical side of being a change maker and building a business. At the end of the Lead Africa pillar, we provide our young leaders with an opportunity to be able to travel to a country within the region. In the past, we've done Rwanda, we've sent some students to Ethiopia, to Zambia, and the goal of each of these trips is to enable them to build a Pan-African mindset. By the end of 2021, we will have developed over 1,000 young leaders, and we anticipate in the next 5 years, we will develop 15,000 young men and women who will drive change within the continent of Africa. We'd like to invite all young leaders across the continent to apply for the program. If you're an ambitious young leader who looks to build a purposeful career and who's looking to be part of a community of people who will make a difference within the continent of Africa, you need to apply for this program. If you're a parent to a young leader and you're looking to ensure that they are on the right momentum, if you would like your young leaders to be part of a community of people who will challenge your young man or woman to be the best version of themselves, you have to support them to join this program. Enable them financially, emotionally, and support them throughout the program. And lastly, we would love to build a village of partners that we will work with to accelerate the work that we are doing within this continent. Our goal is to reimagine the possible, and we invite you to partner with us in this. Partner with us as an employer, partner with us through funding the programs, but ultimately partner with us to reimagine the possible within the continent of Africa.
Okay, I hope you got to enjoy that video and also get to learn about Lapid. So just to give just a short brief about the program again, Lapid has been in the existence for the last 10 years, and our mission has been to equip the young leaders of Africa with the skills that they need in order for them to prosper and also bring impact in the marketplace and whichever else space that they're in. So we do this mainly through our programs, and that is specifically the flagship program, which is built upon the 3 pillars. I hope you got to see from the video, the Lead Self pillar, which focuses on personal growth and well-being. And then we have the second pillar, which is the Lead Marketplace pillar, which aims to position you as a young leader to succeed by sharpening your job readiness skills. And then the Lead Africa pillar, that is about community impact and that inspires young leaders to make a positive difference in their communities. So we believe that leadership is not just about personal success, but it is also about creating meaningful impact that ripples through society. And that's why we exist as Lapid Leaders Africa. And the fact that we've hit 10 years is quite an amazing thing for us. And you know how it goes. 10 years means big things. 10 years is a big number. It's a big number of years, and that means big things as well. So I'd like to officially and also enthusiastically get to announce recruitment that you're getting to do for the Lead Self pillar. So if you know you are a young African leader between the ages of 20 and 30, you are ambitious, you have that strong desire to bring impact in the society through your work, through what you're engaged in. If you believe that you are that leader, I believe this program is for you. So I'm getting to announce a special cohort that we will be getting to officially start off and kick off, and recruitment is ongoing. So it's our special 10th year anniversary cohort, and we are targeting senior students, that is essentially 3rd years and 4th years. If you are a junior student in campus and you are ambitious and you have the drive and you have the hunger to actually grow, this is also an opportunity for you. And if you believe, I believe if you are that young professional who's looking to grow your skills, looking for mentorship, looking for community, looking for purpose in what you're doing, I believe this cohort is for you. So we'll be doing this cohort in a very special way. It will be an activity-packed bootcamp. And we are calling it our 10th year anniversary cohort. So I'd like to welcome you guys to the cohort. I believe there's an application link that will be posted and you guys can get to apply. Maybe you're not that young leader, but you can refer your friends, you have relatives, you have connections, networks. please feel free to share that application link where they can get to apply for the program. And I know you guys don't want to miss this. I believe you guys are in this call because you are young leaders that are hoping to see that impact. And I believe that it will be a great opportunity for you to grow and also just gain those skills that you need to acquire. I believe the application link has been posted by one of us in the chat box. So please feel free to check that out and apply for the program. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be in a position to answer your questions. And also feel free to follow Lapid. We are on all social media platforms, or most social media platforms. That we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on TikTok, we are on YouTube, we are on Facebook. So please feel free to follow us on our socials. Keep up with what we are doing as Lapid Leaders Africa. We've done a number of amazing webinars that we've uploaded on our YouTube page. Go to our YouTube page, have a listen. We have some videos as well that we've curated just for you to just get to experience and get to learn more about Lapid. So don't be shy. Give us a follow, check us out, and just get to engage with the content that is there. But yes, the application is right there. Thank you, Melanie, for posting it. So please ensure that you take a look at that. And please feel free to also reach out to us. I believe, Melanie, you can put our email address right there. If you have any queries or any questions about the program, please feel free to address that on the email. The email will be posted in a few. It will be at programs@lapidleaders.com. And please feel free to also visit our website. We have an amazing website. You guys should go check it out. lapidleaders.africa. I mean, simple, clear. Go check out our website. There are many aspects of the program that we put there for you. We also have some amazing blogs for you to go and read from our alumni and just people who have interacted with the program. So please feel free to interact with us and learn more. So I believe I would like to now allow us to move on from that section. Please ensure that you've gotten that application link. If you haven't, it would be bit.ly/10-year cohort, 10YR cohort. Please feel free to also reach out to us on our email if you have any questions or queries about the program or anything generally about Lapid Leaders Africa. So I'd like to now move on swiftly and just get to introduce our host for today. I know you guys are waiting. I know you guys joined this webinar, not to listen to just me, but we have some amazing guest speakers who will be getting to share with us. They're alumni of Lapid Leaders Africa. So you guys actually get to see the kind of leaders that this program actually helps bring up. And I believe that will be also an awesome opportunity for you to just interact with people who've gone through the program. I believe they'll get to also share their experiences and we'll get to learn a lot from that. So allow me to introduce our host for today. Our host for today is Miss Esther Moneki. She is the founder, CEO, and lead facilitator at Lapid Leaders Africa. She is a seasoned writer. She is a strategic risk manager, a civic innovator, a leader, and a generational healer. She wears many hats, but she is very passionate about the development of people, processes, and systems of organizations in Africa. She founded Lapid Leaders Africa in the year 2014, and some of the highlights of her career journey have been she has been recognized by the Obama Foundation and awarded an Obama Fellow. She was also awarded an African Women in Public Service Fellowship by Oprah Winfrey. So kindly welcome Esther to take over the session. Karibu, Esther. All right, even as she comes in, maybe you can throw an emoji. Even as she's about to join in the session, I believe she's already in the session, so you can throw an emoji. Also get to share with us. Let's not leave the chat box empty or quiet. You can drop a chat there, say hi to us, tell us maybe where you're tuned in from. Are you a student? Are you a young professional? Are you interested in the program? Would you like to know more? Please feel free. The chat box is there for us to interact and engage even as we go through the webinar. So please feel free to engage with us. Okay, I think we can continue, even as you just give Esther maybe a second to join in the session. Maybe somebody can say hi. What did you think about the video? What do you think? What have you learned about the Lapid program? In the Lapid space, there's a common phrase that you will hear, and every Lapidar who hears this word, they know exactly what that means. And that phrase is, or that question is, what are you hearing? That's Lapid lingo right there. I'm helping you in advance for those who are maybe joining the program. Just ask a Lapidar, what are you hearing? And they will immediately know what that means. So maybe somebody can say hi to us on the chat box, or even maybe unmute and say or share with us what they've learned or what they've been able to gain from the video. And maybe you can even share an expectation about the webinar. We'll be getting to engage with our alumni, and maybe you have a question or two. We would love to hear from you. Is there anyone who'd like to say hi to us?
Hello. My name is Makeba. I'm very happy to be back. This isn't my first session, but I've been following them and I've really been liking them. And I'm just saying it's great to be having another of these sessions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Makeba. I'm glad to see and just hear as well that you've been following up with our webinars. We truly appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who'd like to say hi to us? Maybe say where they're joining in from. Yeah, don't say I never give you the opportunity. I did. The opportunity is now. Here it is. You've been wondering who will give you the opportunity to speak. I am giving it to you. Somebody can say hi to us. Is there anyone else before we hand it back to our host?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Cheboy from Emerging Leaders Foundation Africa. This is my very first time to join any of your webinars, and it was interesting watching your documentary because it was almost like watching an ELF Africa documentary. It's interesting how close or similar some of our programs are, and I'm just wondering why we have never partnered or, done a benchmarking or something of the sort. So I give myself a challenge to reach out to you guys in days to come. Thank you. Over to you, Leon.
Thank you so much, Chaboy. I believe Caleb has heard you and he will, do the necessary. My colleague Caleb, who started the session out for us, I believe he'll do the necessary. Thank you so much also for just representing. And karibu sana. We love having guests at Lapid, and we're always happy to engage with other organizations as well. Is there anyone else who'd like to say hi to us, or can I allow our host to take over the session?
Hello, Leon. As Esther comes, I just want to take this opportunity to shout out to Cheboy from ELF and welcome you so much. We are cousins, we are brothers and sisters in this game. And it was not an accident. Actually, our partnership starts and we will be reaching out officially to see how we can work together and how we can grow and change our beloved continent, because we have the same vision and we work towards the same goals. So Cheboy, thank you so much for joining us. And please, our regards to your team and everybody at ELF.
Thank you so much. It will be an honor. Caleb, asante.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe I can give it to our host to take over the session. I would say get out your notebooks. This will be a fun session. It will be very insightful. And I have a friend who always says that always walk around with a notebook when you're around me, because I can always say something wise. And I can take that and say, in any Lapid space, walk around with a notebook. Somebody might just say something wise. Karibu, Esther.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Leon, for that fantastic introduction. And it's nice to see you all. I got in a little bit late, but I am sure you've had a good conversation. Thank you, Leon, for the intro. I really wanted us to still go live on LinkedIn. So Leon will help us with that, so that then I'm getting messages from a few people that they would like to join us. But today we will have a conversation with, so my name is Esther Moniki. I'm the founder and the CEO of Lapid Leaders Africa. I'm excited to have this conversation with us. As you will have heard from the team, it's been 10 years of Lapid. And so for the last few weeks and months, we've been very intentional with celebrating those 10 years. I am a big believer of the fact that it's important to spend time on moments. It allows you to reflect and be able to move forward. And so this has been one of those things that we've been spending quite a bit of time on. And as part of that, we thought it would be great for us to hear from some of our alumni. And so we've been joined by 3 alumni who are going to join me in this conversation. I want to believe that Kevin has, Leon has already introduced them, but Martin, karibu sana. Martin Mwimbi is one of them. I am going to add you into this space. Karibu sana, and Martin. Martin is an entrepreneur who is going to tell you a bit more about himself, but thank you for taking this opportunity to join us. I am grateful. It's always nice to have you and many others join this conversation. So asanti sana. I think I also saw Kevin Mutia here. Kevin, please join in. Karibu sana. I was trying to figure out whether Kevin is in South Africa or in Tanzania. Last time I checked, he was in Tanzania, but I'm not sure whether he's still there or he's with us. Kevin, karibu sana. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this conversation. And it's nice to see you after a very long time. We've been talking remotely, but it's nice to see you in person. Karibu hapa. And the last person, I believe, is Eric. Eric, I don't know if you're here, and if you are, kindly switch on your camera. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining the session, and it's nice to see all 4 of you. And just have this conversation with you guys. Let me first start by saying karibuni and asanteni sana for being part of this conversation. It's actually such a joy for me to be having this conversation with each one of you. We have different cohorts here. I think we have cohort 2 here, and so Eric, you will obviously be the first person who will go first. He was in cohort 2, and then we have Kevin who was in cohort 3, and we have Martin Mwimbi who was in cohort 5. We're going to be having these conversations every Wednesday for the next 3 weeks. It's just part of us making sure that we are spending time reminiscing and also looking at the things that we have learned and the things that we want to be able to do differently going forward. Leon is supposed to give me a confirmation when we've gone live, so that we thank you, Leon, for that confirmation. And I wanted to also welcome the people who are joining us from LinkedIn. Karibuni sana. We are looking forward to a very interactive session. So I want to start with doing actually a Mentimeter. And I don't even know if we'll have enough time for that, but there's a poll that I like to run, and it's going to be put up in the chat room. Caleb, you can put up in the chat room, and also you can put it up on LinkedIn. It's called a Mentimeter. It's a poll that allows us to just get your thoughts around some of the things that we'll talk about today. And so the poll will have questions around, for example, what are you expecting to hear from us? So please open up the poll as the rest of us do our introductions. Eric, we will start with you. Kindly introduce yourself. Anything you want to say about yourself, what you do, what matters to you. Let's start with that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Esther, for having me on this platform. It's an honor and indeed a privilege. And, I perceive this as connecting with my roots. Lapid made me, in some sense. So I'm Eric Maina. I was in cohort 2, Lapid. That was the second cohort. And yeah, what do? I'm a financial services professional, insurance to be specific. Been doing that for the last 7 years, local insurance. Recently, I transitioned into international private medical insurance. A significant moment for me in my career growth. Yeah, and I'm happy to be on this platform. I also do insurance intermediary services on the side in my private capacity. So that's more or less Eric in a nutshell. I'm passionate about conversations like this, and conversations that promote I say humanity, because in the world that we live in, it could do with some humane aspects in all of us. So yeah, ideals that promote humanity, those I advocate for. So that's Eric in a nutshell. Thanks, Esther.
Thank you, Eric. And we celebrate you for the recent move towards the international insurance space. Eric is my personal insurance intermediary. That is what is called. And I love working with him. He has a level of excellence and integrity that I really admire. Thank you, Eric, for being that person and for also being here. Karibu and Asante. Kevin, I think you can go next. Just introduce yourself and something that's important to you about yourself.
Thanks, Esther. Firstly, I'm a Lapid leader. I think that's how we always used to introduce ourselves. My name is Kevin Mutia. I work as an urban planner at an international organization that works to support cities in Africa to meet their sustainability needs. So it's been interesting just seeing how Lapid has really prepared me for that kind of role. But I'm more passionate about Africans and change in Africa. I believe this continent has a lot of potential that's left to be unrealized, and I'm even more passionate about the African youth, just because I've seen this, like African youth are so powerful, and I think once we tap into our own potential, we would really go so far. So I'm very keen to see how the African youth could be empowered to actualize all our dreams and to make this continent the best continent there is. That's me in a nutshell, Esther.
Love that. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And I love the work that you're doing in this space for sustainability. I talk about it with many people. I send very many people to your end. I don't know if they all land, but it's because I love the work that you're doing and I believe in it. And thank you for being in that space. So I had just a few questions and I'm going to just start with those questions. But even as I do that, I believe that in the chat room, the Mentimeter has been shared. So the way the Mentimeter works is you just log into it. And then once you've logged into it, there is a code. And maybe let's all just do that together. It will help us to just start together. So please use the link that has been put up. And then it will take you to a screen. So it's www.menti.com. And then you will need to put in the passcode. So we will do this together. Mine took me direct. I think it knows me somehow. But in case it asks you for a passcode, there's a code that's there, which is 8405-1807. And just has a few questions that we just wanted to get your feedback for as we start this session. So the first question it has is, have you applied for the program? The goal of that is just to be able to see who we have here. Have you done the program, any of the programs? Yes or no is the response that we are looking for. So yes or no, and then you submit the response. And then after that, and I don't know if Caleb, you're the one who is monitoring this, you would need to move to the next slide so that we have the next question. Caleb? Caleb, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You should be able to display, but on it.
Okay, so on my end, it's still saying the presenter hasn't changed the slides. Have you moved to the next question?
Yes, it's a bit, I think it's a bit slow, but it should be presenting on the next.
Okay, if on my end it's not working, I will just keep it and then perhaps we can come back to it later on. I don't know if anybody has managed to get the next question on my end, Avent. No? Okay. Which means the host still needs to move it. Let's come back to it later on. So maybe let me just start with just hearing from both of you. I think you mentioned what you're currently doing about planning and insurance and financial services space. Let me just start with asking why those spaces. And I say that because one of the bigger things that Lapid is all about is and you will have seen the video, Lapid has 3 pillars. We have what we call lead self, then lead marketplace, and then lead Africa. And we believe in the power of self-awareness that then becomes marketplace leadership. So in terms of building the economic power to lead in the marketplace and leverage on that to be a person of impact in leading Africa. And so one of the bigger things that Lapid is very big about is careers that translate into impact, so that then we're not just doing careers or we're not just building businesses, but we're doing them with a purpose in mind and a why in mind that ultimately translates into impact. And so I'd love to hear from both of you, your process towards landing here into the spaces that you are in and why it matters to you. And obviously, I am a person who still asks hard questions. So this is just gonna go the way it's gonna go. So Kevin, we can start with you. Why do you do what you do? Why does it matter?
That's such a good question, Esther. And I think I'll always go back to the session I think we had at Lapid where we were looking at what is your why? I think part of the self-awareness classes. And I struggled with that question. I think we even needed 2 weeks to go back and think about it. And it was so helpful when I finally understood what my why is. And my why was something that was bigger and it was outside of me. I thought my why had to be something I needed to achieve personally, but once I realized it depends on acts of service and being of service to other people, I think it became clearer what I wanted to do, and which was making sure that everyone, regardless of socioeconomic income or background, is able to have a good quality of life in African cities. So that became my driving force, I think, since Lapid, and I took that on even to what I'm doing currently. I just want to make sure, in my work, that I'm a service to people, so that whatever I do is able to impact the life of someone in an African city. It could be in different things, like to make sure they live in good places, people can have access to open spaces for recreation, they can travel to work easily. So it's about others. So I think that's why I do what I do. And I guess it's because of the why, understanding what my why was.
And I love that, because I think one of the bigger things that many young people struggle with, and it's inevitable because of the way the economics in our continent are, many people do work for the sake of doing work. And the problem with that is ultimately you will get successful, you'll get the money, but you have zero joy, because ultimately humans are created in such a way that the bigger joy you get is as you figure out why you're doing what you're doing. That's the difference between us and robots. And so that clarity of I am doing because of is such a big part of not just the program, but a big part of life. And so I admire and I respect the fact that you spent the time clarifying the why of the field that you are in, is the first point that I'm hearing you say. But the second thing that you're saying is actually very powerful, just around ensuring that your professional life translates into the quality of life that people pick up in many cities in Africa. And I think that's powerful, because a lot of people, I don't remember, I always confuse urban planning and architecture. I always tell people, I don't remember which one it was, but it's one of those two. But I don't think a lot of cities in Africa are not intentionally thought through. And this is the implication of colonialism, ultimately. It's the example that I give often is when we went through this whole phase of having malls. and every town had a big mall, and it was a sign of growth. But the question we don't sit with is, are malls authentic to who we are as Africans? Or should we be spending, I'm sure we've had this conversation with you, or should we be spending more time asking, how do we convert toy market into a real thing that works for people? And I think it's just the tragedy of a lot of our cities are modeled around colonial ideas and colonial perspectives of what cities should look like. And what I hear you say is you've converted that to a day-to-day process of ultimately cities are a big name. The question is, what's the quality of life of the people who live there? And do they have access to the things that mean something to them? And I think that's a very big way of thinking about it. And I'm looking forward to hearing some of sort of things that you have come across as you've done that work, because I think that's important as we think about work for impact. It's being able to sit with the question of, what are we finding as we do this work of what is the quality of life of people in Africa, and what's the big work that we still need to do? Because I am 100% sure you have big work waiting for you ahead. Eric, the same question for you. Finance space, why, what about it resonates with you?
So first, I would want to echo Kevin's sentiments on why. I mean, that's on lead self, on the self-awareness session, that was a recurring theme, encouraging us, to explore and find out our why. So to answer your question, for me, finance was a no-brainer. And in fact, I think it's by coincidence, I had always wanted to join the Big Four, specifically PwC. And then, that Lapid came calling, and Esther, being an ex-PwC, it affirmed, my desire to work for PwC. So initially, I wanted to go the investment banking way, but then, life happened. But then it's important, it's not lost on me that Lapid indeed inculcated in me, especially, key values that helped me navigate that particular season. And I found myself in the financial services sector. In fact, insurance, it was baptism by fire for me, because I had no background. My background is in finance and banking. That was what I studied in school. But then Lapid had prepared me enough to, be ready for anything, and to be adaptable in the evolving market space. So, and in fact, my first opportunity was courtesy of Lapid, and I'll put a disclaimer here. I mean, it's not guaranteed that you'll, or all Lapid participants will land places or placements in the market, in the job market. So yeah, so I found myself in that space, and it sort of grew on me. And I've come to love insurance because, number one, it helps. If you look at insurance, it's more of de-risking lives. Look at medical insurance, for example. You are fronting solutions that help people de-risk their lives in a medical aspect, And I've also learned something interesting, especially with medical insurance. Once anyone trusts you to give you solutions in that space, they're basically somehow entrusting you with their lives, You can't afford, for example, to give a solution that won't work for whoever it is that you are proposing that to. So in a way, I've since found my purpose in that space. And I believe what I do is basically de-risking human lives. So if you look at medical insurance, if you look like, for example, motor insurance, you are helping people avert a financial catastrophe in case anything happens to what they value, So that has over time defined my why. And in a sense, I've been able to define even the why as I move. So the risk in people's lives is now what I see myself doing, and I'm proud of that.
I love that. And what I'm hearing is very many things. There is the way people's paths are different. Some people discover what matters to them upfront. Some people encounter it as you go along. And I think that's an important aspect of life, because I think a lot of conversations that happen, especially for young people, have this whole idea of there is one line that has to work for you. I remember having extensive conversations with Eric around, it would be great if he gets into PwC, but it's not the only path that exists. And I think that's one of, I think, bigger things that we are very big on as Lapid, that there are multiple ways to get to Kisumu, is what I tell people. You can go through Kisumu, through Thika. I don't know if there's a pathway there, but there must be. As long as there's a country and another, I mean, a county and another county, there's a way you can go through life in multiple ways. And sort of just that mindset and that value system is something that we are very big on, because what it does is it allows you to be able to take up opportunities as they come along and allow those opportunities to teach you what they need to teach you, and then you move forward. And so what I'm hearing is there was this ideal plan that Eric had, but life is life. But it's that ability to be able to swing through it that perhaps is the reason why communities like Lapid exist, so that then you build the capacity, the mental capacity, but also the community that enables you to be able to figure out those times of change. And that over time then becomes a clarity of purpose. One of the bigger things that I'm very keen on within the program, and this is not just me, but it's, I think, even also the participants. We recently did a survey to figure out what matters about the people who come through Lapid, but it's that sense of clarity of purpose that we constantly go back to. And it's constantly asking, why am I doing what I am doing? And that enables us to be able to be people who add value more than just have a sense of achievement, a sense of a lot of salaries, but ultimately all those things boil down to a clear sense of purpose. And what I'm hearing you say, and I think this is a big thing, is around de-risking the human lives. That's a big deal in the context of Kenya and Africa. I mean, when I think about health, when I think about education, when I think about agriculture, literally this African story is a risky story. And so if there are products that can be built that enable people to de-risk those risks or reduce those risks, then they become an important aspect or an important part of the work that we need to do. And so just I'll come back to you guys to just hear some of the lessons that Lapid instilled in you that still stay with you today. But I want to hear a bit more about the work that you're doing, Kevin. You mentioned an aspect of quality of life and cities being about quality of life. What I'd love to hear from you is, in the last, you joined Lapid, I think was it 2017? I believe it was 2017.
Like 2016.
Yeah,
Into
2016. So
2017.
it's been, yeah. So 8 years later, what are you finding, especially in your specific field, as far as the opportunities and challenges, opportunities and possibilities that you're finding as far as your work goes?
Yeah.
So challenges, opportunities, and possibilities.
That's a good question. I think when I finished Lapid, I had just come out from uni and I was trying to figure out, like you're saying, I was looking for purpose, trying to see what I actually want to do. And I find I'm more goal-oriented. So once I get one goal, then I need to dream for another goal. So having finished school, I was like, okay, now I'm lost. So I think Lapid allowed me to sit down, try and like figure out my why and then see what I needed to do. And like you're saying, I started off like when an opportunity came to me while I was still at Lapid, I ended up getting an opportunity to do graphic design at UN Habitat, which I hadn't done graphic design previously, but I said, you know what, this is an opportunity, let me take it on. And it exposed me like to understand urban issues, I think across the continent, but even more so like at a global level. And it was very exciting. Then you could get to see the inconsistencies or inequalities between urban development in different places. And I was very struck by like the statistics around Africa. You know, you'd read books that said, like African cities maybe get less access to water, to mobility, to housing. And I thought that was quite strange, because if we're expecting to have the highest one of the highest rapid urbanizations in Africa, why are we still struggling with the basic needs? So what I've noticed, like working in Africa, and I've been very fortunate to have worked in organizations that have exposed me to different contexts. So we've worked in Tanzania, in Sierra Leone, in Ghana, and it's just been a very interesting thing. And I think also having gone through Lapid and doing the exchange, I think we'll talk about it later, exposes you to different contexts. So I think while I'm doing the work I'm doing now, it doesn't feel strange. It just feels like it's an extension of something I've done previously. So what I noticed is the challenges are kind of similar. Like Esther, you said, there's issues dealing with how we've inherited all these colonial mindsets, colonial ways of planning, and no one is really, I felt like no one was really asking the critical questions. Why are we still doing what we're doing, and why are we doing it the way we always have? I still ask myself that question to date when I look at informal settlements. I mean, we can't be talking about informal settlements for 30, 50 years. So I just wonder whether people are asking the right questions. And so I see the same issues. It's around lack of government taking initiative to have like a coordinated approach in fixing people's problems. It's all very siloed. Everyone's doing their own thing. There's also lots of just siloed approaches and siloed ways of thinking and also of behaving, because some departments don't speak with others, yet they're supposed to collaborate, but there's just a very entrenched way of working that is not working and is so ineffective. But it keeps going, it grinds the gears, people get paid, so no one's really changing anything, and that really frustrates me. It's housing issues will always be top of the list. How unequal the distribution of assets and resources are in African cities, where the rich have more and the poor don't really get the same. And I keep asking, who's really going to build cities for the poor or for people who don't have? But then also there's been very interesting work that's taking place in the space, where there's institutions across different levels. I also was fortunate to work with community-based organizations, which was a really interesting space, because you work directly in the community and you get to see what needs to change. What are those small things that often don't get highlighted at big levels, like collaboration, getting people's buy-in, people's trust. And it's all these like simple things that I think we're putting aside. And also just wanted to reflect on kind of my experience at Lapid when we had to do some volunteering at Kibagare school that was in the Kibagare slum. So it gave me such an insight into understanding, everyday realities of people who live in informal settlements, what their day-to-day is, what their ambitions are, and just the aspect of being selfless in giving your time, your skills, your expertise. It just shows that if you're humble and you're willing to meet people where they are, a lot can get done. So in terms of the opportunities, there's lots of opportunities. I've been very interested in seeing all the innovations that are coming from different ways of thinking. So people are thinking differently around how cities are built, thinking differently about different solutions, targeting different interventions. So we are realizing we can't build a whole city from scratch. How about we build small interventions here and then see if they work, if those ideas work, and if they can be scaled out. And people are almost starting their own initiatives. So it's been very interesting seeing people who just have started initiatives around rethinking cities, building pilots, creating products. So I'm realizing it's a whole approach. We don't need one way of doing things. We just need multiple people doing different things that kind of speak to the same vision. Yeah.
I love that. I'm hearing very many things, but I want to just lift a few. I love where you started, Kevin, with I was feeling lost. And I think that's a powerful place that I don't find many young people owning, and is a truth. I tell people, even whether you name it or not, the finishing campus or being in your last years of campus, the natural sense of and the first years of employment, the natural sense of feeling lost is real. And it continues throughout life, because life is like that. But it's that ability that you have to name, I'm feeling lost. That's something that I value within the community and even generally within life, because I have found that there is this big need that people have to sort of just shape life as this neat life where we all have things figured it out. And so I just want to lift what you just started with, that you finished campus while feeling lost and chose this as a space that allows you to sit with your lostness. It may present some solutions, but it's the bigger thing that it does is allows you to sit with your lostness and just hold it as a reality. I really want to celebrate that, because I think that's a real life skill that many people struggle with. And then the second thing I'm hearing you talking about, and I had even Eric mention it earlier, is a lot of opportunities coming through people. So as you interact with people, you then are able to get the next opportunity. So I had Eric saying, as he interacted with people within Lapid, he got his first job. As you interacted with people within your circles, you got your first internship at UN Habitat. And the reason I say that is one of the other things that I encounter a lot today is people finishing campus and sitting at home and depressed. And in reality, actually, you do have a reason to be depressed. Your economy is bad, your governments are bad. That's a truth. But get out as well. Get out and interact with people. And as you do that, if you have the humility to pick the opportunities as they come, there's a way they then start to teach you. So for you, it was the UN Habitat as an internship without knowing what the next thing is, but it starts you on a path that you still are exploring. And so that whole idea of opportunities and people is something that I'm hearing, but also just being willing to explore. And I don't hear it as something that you stopped. I think I hear it as something that you're still doing today. And so it's just building that muscle that enables you to constantly be exploring as something that I'm hearing. And then there's something that you say that I'm going to come back to again, as we do our round around asking the right questions and the exposure that enables you to sort of just lead Africa, because as I mentioned, it was a lead self, lead marketplace, and ultimately a lead Africa kind of process. And it doesn't have right answers, but I just want to hear the process that you guys have gone through. And Eric, I want to come back to you. And I will lift the good thing is I know a bit of your experiences, and I'm sure I can ask whatever questions. I can ask 100 questions, but you have been involved and have been at the forefront of supporting a business to come up from ground zero. Well, not ground zero, but from startup level, but actually from ground zero, because you started the insurance side of that business. And I want to hear your process with that. What are some of the things that you saw as challenges people face as they start businesses, and things that you had or skills that you had that enabled you to work through those challenges from a startup perspective? Because so for purposes of just bringing people up to speed, Eric's first job was in an insurance. Tell us about the first job and what you were doing. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing that part.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll start with my first job. So my first job, it was supposed to be an insurance analyst position. A very fancy title in hindsight. But then again, that is where my first introduction into insurance happened, knowing nothing at all as far as that space goes. I worked for about 1 year, 8 months. And then my immediate former opportunity came by. So I'm a firm believer of, opportunity meeting preparedness. So I'll go a little bit back to, the process of how I joined Lapid. So it couldn't have happened at a better time for me, because I had just cleared campus. And like Kevin, trying to figure out, the next process was going to be. And so somebody proposed Lapid, and there was a solid buy-in to that. So it was a no-brainer for me. And I don't regret that decision. So fast forward to what I was saying about the 1 year, 8 months experience. Again, I'll bring in something else. I'm also a believer of no experience in life is wasted. However, seemingly insignificant it is. Because for me, I mean, number one, this is a path that chose me. I did not choose the path. And that somebody took faith in me and that belief that a 1 year and 8 months experience can actually be something in an insurance startup in that sense. It was a defining moment for me, and that even fueled me and gave me the confidence. So that's how I was able to take up the challenge and start the insurance business in that organization. So what were the challenges? A lot, of course. It's a very competitive space, the financial services sector, especially insurance. And there's cutthroat competition. So the first hurdle was, you're a new entrant. There have been other players who've been there for ages. And insurance, MACU, is a business of trust. So the challenge was, how do you convince someone who has had another intermediary for 10 years, 20 years, and even more, to come and, work with you as an insurance intermediary, So that was the first hurdle. But then how was I able to navigate that? Again, I'll borrow from my experience in Lapid. And Esther was a firm, and still is a firm proponent of challenging the status quo and doing things differently. So yeah, I was confident in what we were, proposing. And then another thing is that the values acquired from Lapid, the core values 10, I see now there are more. There used to be 3 core values. It was innovation, servant leadership, and excellence. And interestingly, I have come to own those values, even in my professional life and social life. Every organization that I go to, I have to look for excellence, and servant leadership mostly. And interesting enough, in the startup that I was part of the team that helped, start the insurance department, those were core values, interestingly. And so that is what, that was my fuel, challenging the status quo. Number one, I also learned that it's a very sales-driven industry, and most of the intermediaries are in it for the commission. They forget the purpose. Number one is you're proposing a solution that will help de-risk a person's life. So there are education solutions, medical solutions, and what have you. So number one, I decided, I was very intentional. So it's not about the commission or the profits. It's about, that key purpose of de-risking lives. And then everything follows. So once you master that and people gain your trust, because there was a lot, there were so many challenges. Still are, but the industry has come a long way to solve those challenges. So there is still a lot of mistrust. There are cases of intermediaries, you pay premiums and then they, end up using those premiums and not paying to the insurance company, so you are left exposed. So number one was we were keen on changing the narrative, try and dispel that mistrust in the industry. Number two, we found some, there still are anyway, the way insurance companies, for example, the approach they take to, I'll use a technical term, to underwrite risks. They're very traditional ways, because I realize some of these methods that they use, they don't appreciate the change in things, for example. So I started having these conversations, being vocal about it in a small way. And interestingly enough, some of these players used to give us audience, and we were actually able to create some products around that space and co-create solutions around that space. So challenging the status quo, changing the narrative by earning people's trust. So those are some of the ways that we used to change the tide in our favor. So I did that for 6 years until, I recently left. So those are the things that worked for me. So the main challenges, to come back to what you're saying, were, facing the reality that there were more established players in the sector, that you needed to win people's trust because some had intermediaries for decades even. So to have a very solid proposition to make, this person trust you, that was a very interesting moment as far as that space in life was concerned.
I love what you're talking about, and the important values that I just want to lift up. The first thing I'm hearing you talking about is just starting. It still goes back to where we said earlier, starting with what you're given. And I like the way you named it as a fancy title, but then you quickly realize the bigger job that this thing is for me to learn. And I say that because in reality, and especially many people in Kenya who start their first jobs, you'll be given a fancy title, but in reality, you're a KYM. But how you translate that in your mind in terms of whether you're a KYM or this is an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to serve, then makes a huge difference. And so what I'm hearing you saying is getting this fancy title, finding things on the ground, vitu ni tofauti, but are still leveraging on that and saying this is going to be a learning opportunity for me, and using that to be able to build on the things that you've done today is the first thing I'm hearing you. And then the second thing I'm hearing you say is opportunity meeting preparedness. It goes back to what we said. You have an option to sit in the house and be lost and frustrated, but what you chose is to engage in something and engage wholeheartedly. And so when the opportunity comes, it meets somebody who has been preparing. And the preparedness involved the core values that we constantly did work around. And I'm hearing that those values then become a way of life in the place that you go and build a business. When I think about, for example, the trust of clients, it's if you have any insurer, maybe when I started my professional life 20 years ago in PwC, and the first person who stole from me was an insurance person. And so the trust of clients is real. Everybody has a story of an insurance person who they shouldn't have trusted. But then going into that space and choosing that I'm going to serve, I'm going to have a mindset of excellence in a space where there is madogodhanyo or there is chaos. Just being a countercultural kind of person who serves and who does it with excellence enables you to become then somebody who is entrusted with starting a business from scratch. An inexperienced person who is entrusted with starting a business from scratch. But also, and I've interacted with Eric in a lot of ways. I personally work with him, and I've had many stories with many other people. It's Eric's way of insurance intermediary is very driven by service. I tell people, I was telling somebody today, Mimi sikumbukangi insurance yangu expire. That is my reality. But the one thing I normally know, somebody called Eric will know. And they will tell me if I need to fix it. And that's what it looks like to serve and serve with excellence. He doesn't need to, but it's that he's chosen to embody those values, and those then translate into the quality of work that he is then entrusted with a bigger role within the company, and ultimately then driving change. This is something that I talk about a lot. I'm doing a lot of conversations in governance space at the moment. And the reason I'm doing that is I hear a lot of people talking about young people shouldn't. Those are lies from the devil, in fact. Young people must. This continent's majority is young people. If young people are not, who will? And so just that whole idea of you as a change maker is something that's embedded in a lot of the conversations that we have within Lapid. And so if the insurance space has Madogodani or chaos or whatever it is, asking what is the role that I'm going to play in driving change in that space becomes that something that Eric has to constantly be thinking about. And Martin Karibu, you dropped out, so I wasn't sure whether you're still part inside here, and thank you for coming back. Martin has will introduce himself because I think haukuwa tukifanya introduction. Just introduce yourself, what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing.
All right, thank you, Esther. I hope I'm clear. Okay,
Yes, you
sorry,
are.
I had an internet issue a bit, but now so I'm Mwimbi Martin. I was in Lapid back in 2017, so that's about 5, I remember. I'm an entrepreneur, so I run a business that we deal with the customized aquariums and podiums. So basically, that's my brief introduction, and I'm glad to be here.
And I'm gonna just zero in on you, Martin, and it helps that I know you well. So Martin, you've done a degree in civil engineering. And one of the things that we're talking about here is around breaking from the mold. You chose to break from the mold that was the space of employment in civil engineering. Please take us through that. You're in Lapid, how you go about getting your first job, some lessons from it, and how you ultimately step away from it.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's quite a memory. I think it's been years. I was in Lapid, and I think a key part of what I found in myself was I'm more of a problem. So I'm more into providing solutions to problems. I think that's what gives me joy most of the time. So after Lapid, I remember I served in it was called back then the Lapid Council, which is usually once you are done with the classes, then you're able to serve the incoming class. And I think we did it almost for 6 months or a year. So I was there in the docket of recruitment. Sales has been quite one of my strong areas, but out of that, I remember I had a lot of experience, and I was able even to, maybe I can say my sales skills were really sharpened, because we used to do a lot of recruitment, meeting people, trying to sell Lapid in terms of explaining to them, because Lapid, sometimes it's very hard to explain to people what Lapid is, because I remember I used to live with my cousin when I finished campus, and they were wondering, what is this thing I'm going and using my fare every day going from Siokimau to Gong Road. And that time I didn't have a job. I had just started my business, which was not doing so well. So out of that, later on, after serving for a while in the council, I got an opportunity, which was actually through Lapid. I got an opportunity to work with National Oil. And I remember I went for the interview. We had been prepared for the interviews, because we usually have the mock interviews in Lapid. I had an easy time doing that, I remember. But a key thing about what Lapid played a big role in is how I adapted into that new culture, because now you are a newbie in this organization. So I remember we used to be taught more of making because I was the regional improvement engineer, then we had a project engineer in charge. A big part of what Lapid used to emphasize was making your boss's life very easy instead of reporting problems, because in National Health, there are so many problems to report. So I remember what we got in as 2 people, and you could see there's a difference, because for me, I was just focusing on how, even if I'm going to report a problem, do I have a solution for it upfront? So after National Health, I think I worked there for 2 years, and I felt like the environment wasn't good enough for me. So now I quit business. I quit the employment and went business full time. So I think it's good in life you don't get so much fixated in your degree. That's what I would like to tell people. You're not defined by what you did. Just find what are some of these gifts that fuel you up and you're able maybe to serve people well with.
I love that. And I'm going to come back to you. Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to come back to you for more details around the business journey and sort of some lessons you've learned as you've done that. But I'm hearing you say several things that I just want to lift up. The first thing I'm hearing you say is the power of self-awareness. Just that process of understanding what you're good at enabled you to name that you're good at providing solutions to problems. And that's such a big thing for someone to know. I think because of our academic nature, we get stuck in, I did a degree in. Those are helpful. But ultimately, the bigger goal is to ask, who am I in the context of this degree? I always, when I translate an engineer, I mean, it's complicated. It's a part of it I don't understand. But my summary of engineering is what you said. An engineer takes problems and solves them. And so that's who you are, and then you expanded that into the business that you then run today. And so I wanted to just lift that up, the power of self-awareness and how self-awareness then enables you to find the path that makes sense to you. And that path may be different from everybody. I tell people I'm a trained accountant properly. I can do audit with my ears and my eyes closed, or with risk management with my whatever closed. But that self-awareness allows you to figure out what are the spaces I would thrive in. And so I lift that up and just celebrate it, that you've spent time understanding what makes sense to you and had the courage to break away from the possibility that was civil engineering and be true to the person that you are. And I really celebrate that. And the second thing I'm hearing is, as you do that, as you step into opportunities, you start to sharpen your skills. So innately, one of the things that we talk about in Lapid is our job is to ignite prowess. And we say ignite prowess because we believe everybody has a greatness inside of them. And our job is just to ignite it, to elevate it. So Martin was innately a salesperson. I am 100% sure of that. But as he then steps into the council and he's playing the roles of recruitment, those skills start to get sharpened. And that's the power of taking opportunities as they come to you, because then that elevates your skills and enables you to sharpen the skills, and then they become opportunities for you to do more even later on. And so just sort of that, lifting that up. And then I love what you said about that used to come from Syokimau to Ngong Road. I had forgotten that. These guys used to have physical classes every Saturday from 8 to 5. This is how you know that you're the right people in this plate. So when we were planning this conversation, we were talking about having a decades of transformation with pioneer alumni. And I consider all of you pioneers. And it's the fact that you would wake up by 8, you had to be in Ngong Road. Kutoka Syokimau. This was before bypass or overpass or whatever that thing is called, which means you have to wake up really early. They are there the whole day on Saturday and investing in yourself. And you even still didn't have even a job then. But that's who you are as a person. It's that resilience. It's that commitment to your self-growth that enabled you to keep coming through, that I think is something that is, as citizens and as people, we need to learn, as young people, we need to learn. There's a lot of waiting for comfort zone. Ninaamka, you know, nowadays now we even have this webinar thing is, and I find people wake up in the morning at hawajaosha macho with the matogos of the night, umeingia and umeingia late. But just that pushing yourself of all the way from Syokimau to Ngong Road every Saturday for 4 months without a job. And even when we had events, there's no event that Martin missed. When he says he will lead the recruitment, I cannot begin to explain how much work that entails. And that consistency is still the person that I see today. And then the last thing I just want to lift is, so stretching, and I think you talked about stretching and just allowing yourself to stretch beyond your comfort zone as an important part of life. And then also don't get fixated with degrees is something that's important as people build on their careers. So I want to come back to you, I want to come back to you, Kevin, and talk about the power of exposure. And I want to talk about that in the context of what we do in Lead Africa. You guys do, some of you, not all of you, but many of you do a study trip. So, and that involves
going to a country within the region. So please share with us, I think I'm sure you did Ethiopia, I believe, and what that did for you in terms of then and what it means for you today.
So I think it also links to the conversation before around getting out of your comfort zone and excellence. So I believe like excellence is experienced, like you need to exemplify excellence even in the smallest tasks. So even before that, so before the whole exchange, there was a lot of things that we went through at Lapid that really stretched you. So I tend to think I'm more introverted, so I really would like to keep to my own space and do my own thing, but that was not the case. We had to have organize bake sales at Mavuno, make smoothies, make cakes, make fruit salads, sell, like make pitches, ask people to buy. And we did it with so much excellence, from the packaging to our commitment to getting other people involved. And it was so helpful. And also just believing that you can do better than what you thought, like going outside of your comfort zone. I remember the target was so unrealistic for me. I was like, how are you going to get 300,000 for this trip? It seemed like so impossible. But it was the small things that we did well. And I remember the fundraising was also very challenging because we had to go to embassies and give them a pitch and drive a concept note and say, we're looking for this amount of money. And it really stretched us. But it was very useful. And I remember in that role, going to the Africa Exchange, it was myself and my other colleagues, and I think I was leading the whole trip. So the logistics, how we were going to get there, the flights. So I'd not been in a leadership role in that way, and it was also very different, but it allowed me to at least step into some leadership skills and understand what I was capable of. And it was very stressful, like making sure that 20 of us got good flights. We arrived in Addis. We booked meetings with people from different sectors, from architecture to economics to investment. And I think it relates to what Eric, Martin, and Esther are saying. You have to almost like see yourself outside of your role, your degrees, engage with different people. Don't just stay stuck in what you know and expose yourself. So we really had a great experience. We met some really, really high level people that I don't think I would ever have met. We set up meetings with people at the Africa Union, from investment companies, from people who had just come back from the US, and we're getting into entrepreneurship with people in IT. And yeah, it was such a great experience, and I don't even know how we did half of that, going in a different country, setting up meetings, meeting people, and it's just the excellence. We had business cards, and I want, thinking back now, we were 23 to 25, maybe even younger, but we handled ourselves so professionally. We were in a new space. We did such great networking. And yeah, and I think the power of exposure, at least for me, my own exposure was in managing a team, understanding what team dynamics look like, how you coordinate events, in country, out of the country, meeting different people. How do you communicate? How do you have engagement so that you're clear about what you want to get out of it? And for myself as well, being in the urban space, it was my first trip actually outside of Kenya. And yeah, I got to see Addis Ababa, and it was so fascinating. It was so much more developed than what I expected. They had the overhead rail, like the city just looked like completely different from what I thought. And it gave me such insights. I thought, oh wow, other people are doing other cool things. We can sit in our own country and say, okay, we're the best, this is all we know. But when you get outside, you start seeing people who are doing things like differently. They have different goals. You just meet. Yeah, I think it really helped me with my get a Pan-African mindset, to realize that, oh, even this guy or this lady from Ethiopia, love being African, and they have a bigger picture outside of their nationality. So it gave me a lot of insights. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, because then I got to do more leadership tasks. And even in my current role now, we organize a lot of training and capacity building in different countries. So I would not have been, it wouldn't have been as easy for me to do that if I hadn't done this thing at Lapid, which might have looked like a small thing, but it really prepared me to demonstrate excellence and servant leadership and innovation. Yeah, thanks, Esther.
And I love that. And I want to lift many things that you've just said that I think are important. Let me just say, so what he's describing is what we call an Africa experience, which is sort of that the idea behind it is to build up an African mindset. And it's a process where the leaders, the young leaders, go to a country by themselves. I never used to think it's a big deal, but actually now I hear many people saying like it's such a big deal. So it's your 23 to 25-year-old, for example, for Kevin, they went to Ethiopia by themselves as a cohort. You fundraise for that trip. Hakuna mtu ambaye anakusaidia na hiyo story. It's fundraise, raise the money, go have meetings like the professionals that you're supposed to be. And what you're lifting, and I still remember you guys doing your experience, just the excellence of, in fact, I remember one of you wrote, someone who was going to Rwanda wrote a blog, help her become a hawker. But it was that whole idea of if you need to hawk sweets or whatever you need to hawk to raise the money to go for this trip, you do it. But that's a picture of what you do with life today. It's that ability to stretch from what you're comfortable with and waiting for people to do things for you and waiting for people to organize you and realizing no one is coming. It's just you and you. And so the excellence of that, getting out of your comfort zone, managing a team, managing yourself. Mko peke yenu, you've gone to Ethiopia, you're taking a flight from Kenya to Ethiopia, all of you. Remember that. If not all of you, I suspect it was all of you. It was the first time you were getting out of the country. You're by yourself. Your Esther is not even involved in that whole process. Jipangeni, land on the other side, manage yourselves from start to end. But it builds a muscle in you. You did not die. You all survived and did a fantastic job. And so that muscle must be built around self-management, around self-leadership. But it's also the power of exposure that you're lifting. You meet people that you'd never have met before. In this case, your African Union and other business leaders and investment leaders, that broadens your mind. Being in a place that you've never been to broadens your mind. And that then starts to become the career that you're doing today. And I think it's part of what I'm hearing you say is now you are an African more than you're a Kenyan. When I hear you talking about you were in Tanzania, you were in Sierra Leone, you were in Uganda, whatever the case may be, that's you thinking as an African. And that was one of the bigger things that we wanted to lift. That even as young people start to finish campus, finish college, we think about ourselves in borderless terms. And just to put context for that, in reality, these borders, they're young. Some people sat in some place in 1890, whatever, and they decided you're Kenyan, you're South African, you're Sierra Leone. You don't have to sit within that. And so it's just sort of elevating that to think as a borderless African was a big thing that was important as part of that experience. Eric, I believe you guys went to Rwanda. Where people went to Rwanda? Just lift one or two lessons that you picked from that experience that have stayed with you.
So in fact, thank you for that. We actually did, and I say this in all humility, we did the inaugural Africa experience to Rwanda.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. In fact, there's no humility there. Maybe I can share some emoji.
Yeah, we did the first one, and I was privileged to be the finance manager for that particular trip. Again, just like Kevin said, a lot went into fundraising for that particular trip. And I remember, I think even a day to the trip, we still hadn't raised the resources that were required to actualize the trip. And then all along, we knew Esther would be tagging along, only for us to, learn at the last minute that she wouldn't be coming along with us. So anyway, there were false, okay, let me not say false. There are some promises that were not fulfilled by some of our leaders. One is currently holding a very big position at the moment. Yeah.
They promised you money and they didn't give you.
Exactly. We even went to their office at KCC. We made several trips, and
I remember. Oh my God, I remember. A very senior person in our political space today. We will not name names.
Exactly. So it was a very humbling experience as well. Coming up with very innovative ways of raising resources for that trip. We sold juices. I remember. I think I was then 21 years. So, and there was that, that self-preservation that comes with, I can't be, caught hawking juice or something like that. But what I remember mostly is the process that led into the whole thing actualizing. In fact, finally, we were able to raise the resources required. And it built resilience in me. I mean, I learned from that experience that nothing is unachievable. If you set your mind, your heart to it, it will somehow actualize. So the fundraising experience, especially that, has since stuck with me. Again, it was also my first venture out of Kenya. So it also broadens your perspective in many ways. And for the people we met, I remember going to the American embassy in Rwanda, meeting the associate director then, PwC Rwanda. And it's not lost on me that Esther is very intentional. And that's why I say sometimes it's good to vocalize your dreams. You never know who's listening, because from the onset, I was keen on joining PwC. And Esther was very intentional, because I remember I led that particular meeting with the associate director then, PwC Rwanda. So thank you, Esther, for that. So, and it is in those meetings, in fact, that particular meeting, it somehow gave me a leakage into the PwC interview process, because much later, I was able to go through the processes up to the manager stage, and then, as fate would have it, I was not successful. But then I remember now it's from those interactions with people who had been, and then somebody during the Lapid experience, I forget his name, during the entrepreneurship classes, he was like, learning from people whose immediate past is your immediate future. So in that sense, that experience affirmed my desire to work for certain organizations in that sense. Yeah, meeting some very young people doing good, big things in the entrepreneurship space. I remember there's a young gentleman, Roa Capital, I think that was the name of, I remember that guy. What else? Yeah, we met representatives of the Rwanda Development Board. And now that was how many years ago? 9 years ago. So you can imagine how, and that demonstrates the power of visionary leaders. You see, like Paul Kagame and what they're doing in Rwanda, like the Rwanda Development Board, they were so keen on even the concept of having industrial parks and EPZs. Well, we had one then in Kenya, and some have since come up, many have since come up. But looking back 9 years ago and seeing how intentional Rwanda was and still is in actualizing some of these things, it goes to show the power of having visionary leaders, in these spaces. So yeah, indeed, an eye-opening experience, especially being the first one. So we were the pioneers in that sense. So
I remember that. I'd forgotten.
Yeah, that was a very, 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 very defining moment. And, I'm forever.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Eric. And thank you for setting the pace for the others, because if you guys hadn't done what you did, it wouldn't have been possible for us. It was a risk. And this is something that I believe in. I tell people, you will never realize what you can do until you've tried. If you fail, the worst thing that will happen is you will have failed. And so I remember that process of thinking, we want to send our young people to countries within the region, interact with business leaders in those spaces, government leaders, and be very intentional with that process. And it was a risk. You could have gotten there and messed up, as would happen many years later. But you guys were very responsible with that process, with the managing the resources, fundraising, managing the meetings. That's very important. And then I'm also lifting what you're saying, that we had some government leaders, even those days, they promised us money and they never delivered. But I think that's important as a life lesson, because the reality is, if you look at the last 10 years outside Lapid, how many times have you been disappointed by people? I would be surprised if any of you told me none. But that's the muscle of life. We should have perhaps lifted that issue, because maybe those shouldn't be our government leaders. I have to keep telling myself that. But disappointment as life is what I'm hearing. The power of process, those experiences, what they lifted for you, the power of faith and resilience. I remember the day before for this cohort, we didn't have the money, but we had the faith that the money will come through. Now, it's one thing, I'm very faith-driven for those of us who don't know. It's one thing to say faith drives, it's another for you to be the day before, pesa haijafika, but imagine the money landed and these people went, and we have sent even many more cohorts. And so that stops being a story of I have faith, but it becomes a practical experience of actually faith with action. And then networking and learning. I love the quote you've given around learning from the people whose immediate past is your immediate future. And that's the power of being in such spaces. You're constantly networking, and that networking then becomes the next opportunity. It becomes the next lesson. And so the power of networking and being able to learn from other people is what I am lifting from what you're saying. Muimbi, you are Uganda. So we've gone to Ethiopia. We've done a proper African experience. We've done Ethiopia first. We did Rwanda. Muimbi was in Uganda, and yours as a very entrepreneurial experience. Just lift one or two things that stayed with you from that.
Thank you, Esther. We really enjoyed the trip to Uganda. I think a big part of it was a lot of food and at affordable price. Yeah,
that
but
sounds
it's something
like
that
Uganda.
really shocked me after we came back. Yeah, so I think we are able to meet different business people, and even in terms of the way we are seeing now people challenging the leadership. We met I think it was the brother-in-law to Museveni, who was actually having a very different view of how the country should be run. So we were just shocked, because for him, he doesn't share the same ideologies as you would expect, because he's a family person. Those were some of the most interesting things. And I remember navigating through those Kampalas. Is it Kampala? Yeah. It was a new experience. We went even to Lake Victoria. Then there's someone who also shocked me up to today. There's Grace Usenge, who went with. Grace was a very, I think I would call her the most introverted person in that group. Then we came back. We came back with a business out of the mentors who we had met there. She was doing the shea butter, and we came up with a business which was Shea Africa. But she also, in the process, of course, in the process, we couldn't agree on a number of things, but she founded her own separate business, which is doing so well. But what I was just shocked by the change in terms of, Grace was not a business person. What to say, because from the way I met her and the interaction. Right
Very
now,
true.
she's just doing amazing things with that product and the business. So it was quite a good experience and very resourceful to those that went there.
Yeah. I really like that. And I'm going to come back to you, Martin, for one more round around your experience for the entrepreneurship. But I'm hearing you say, many people, when we do the Africa experience, people refuse to go to Uganda. And they say, Niapa too. But the thing that I respected about your cohort is you guys took this and you took it fully and you did it fully. And it's not surprising that then the visit actually rewarded all of you guys, because you weren't demeaning where you were going. You were fully present. You met, I don't know if you're in the cohort with Monica. Monica, I was reading her emails the other day and how she met with there's a US investor that we connected her with, and they attempted to work together, but it was people fully present for that experience. And I think that's something I want to release and lift up. I find a lot of young people today, we have a sense of entitlement that says, I will not go to places that are not fancy. I will not go to Uganda. I will not meet entrepreneurs. They are the worst. You don't know what life has ahead for you. That humility to be a learner is what I celebrate your cohort for. And I think that humility is what ended up being Grace starting her business. Now, Grace was actually to be part of this session for today, and she runs a business called Ayana, and you guys should follow it. They met with, my recollection, this, and Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, we connected them with some women who were running some social enterprise where they were producing shea butter. And so they went to see those women, and they agreed to be importing that shea butter from them and using that to create products. And so that's where then Grace created a business called Ayana that has hair products, skincare products that utilize that shea butter. And it's not a big business. I mean, if you follow her on social media, you will see that she was in Rwanda for a fellowship the other day. I think she's in Burundi now, but she's actually expanding that business really well. But what I wanted to lift was she had no interest in entrepreneurship. In fact, I remember in most classes for entrepreneurship, Grace would be sleeping. And I say that to say, life is life. There's so much you don't know. But that humility to avail yourself in these exposure experiences broadens your mind, and you never know what God does with such experiences. And so I think that's something that I wanted to lift. But also something that we're very big on is exposing people to visionaries who are bold, whether it's in Uganda and the president for Museveni, or even in Kenya. Because of what I said earlier, if it is not young people who will change this continent, who in God's name will? And so just that whole idea of exposing us to visionary and bold leaders enables us to see what we are able to do. And as I do, I'm going to do the last round of questions. But Martin, I just wanted to hear from you one thing around why you now come back and you're a mentor in one of the classes for entrepreneurship. What has the entrepreneurship journey taught you? Just very high level, because I'm sure we can't go into detail with it. What's one thing that your entrepreneurship journey has taught you that you would like to share with other people?
Thank you. I think a big part, yeah, sure, I can hear you. I've come to realize if you focus on input, then you don't get frustrated, because most of the time we focus on the results. Most of us are waking up every day chasing the cow to milk it. But now you forget that the cow needs some grass, needs some tendering. So I think when I came to Lapid, that was not even the way I was doing business before then, because it was more of getting money. Can I make a sale and make money? But when you focus on serving people, you realize that when you serve a client and they are really contented with your services or product, then that client is able to even refer you to other maybe clients. And that one goes also, I think these are lessons that cut across even in your profession. Wherever you are you trying to make the other person's life easier? Because once the other person's life easier is, then they will also try reciprocate with at least rewarding you. It doesn't need to be guaranteed, but anytime that you are maybe running a business, can you check on what can you improve maybe in that society? Like I think a big part of what we have done in the business, because we have even added some more products into the business, I've realized that the human mind is very flexible. So actually, we don't employ, when it comes to making those products, we don't employ trained personnel. We bring new people who have never done maybe an aquarium, a podium, then we train them, and you just train them with the basics, but now you try to give them that leeway of being creative. What can they produce out of their own thinking? And I think I've seen wonders in that. because sometimes we get fixated. When we learn about something, we get fixated that that's the only way. But when someone comes without that experience, I've realized that they are very malleable in terms of how they handle the operations.
I love that. And I think I'm sure Martin can do a whole conversation for entrepreneurship, because I think he's one of those people who's very passionate about entrepreneurship. And I want to just request Melanie, who is in the chat room, to please share his Facebook page and his Instagram so that we follow him. But I want to lift a few things that he said that are important. The quality of service still matters. I personally, as Esther Monique, have referred Martin to several people. And the reason I do that without even a blatter of whatever that word is the quality of work that he does. If Martin says he's going to bring you aquariums, so he has these aquariums that he spent quite a bit of time understanding the process of feeding the fish, I hear those things, the process of maintaining the aquariums, and even the construction process of those aquariums. He doesn't just do it, he does it with excellence. And I think that's something just to lift from an entrepreneurial perspective. Just the whole philosophy of quality, and excellence is something that's important. And the second thing I'm hearing is also just the quality input, to be able to say the inputs that come in, am I investing in them? And that may be the cow, it may be the employees, it may be the customers, but am I spending time making sure that the quality is not just in the output, but also it's the quality that's within the input. And that takes a long time for people to get, especially in entrepreneurship. We spend so much time talking about the quality of output, but ultimately the quality of output is dependent on the quality of the input. And so spending time again exploring what does quality input look like becomes very important, but also constant engaging with mentors and a community around it. Martin is constantly in one class after another for entrepreneurship. I've spent time, I still remember us doing a session, I think early last year, talking about his finances and guiding him towards some of the things that he can do differently. I hope you still do those things we talked about, Muimbi. Unakumbuka hata?
I do. Yeah, I do. They have really been helpful.
Yeah.
And just to chip in, I forgot something about the power of having someone. I think there's Eric who shared about someone who has already gone through what you want to go through. I remember in one of the sessions in Lapid, what gave me confidence even in my business, I used to feel like I'm just selling a fish, you know, when I came to Lapid. But I remember attending a session with Joram. It's called Joram Winamo. He was one of the Lapid mentors. And when I introduced my business, and I was trying to figure out what am I exactly doing, he was able to help me figure out, and he really showed me into how I'm solving a certain problem. It's an emotional problem. It's about aesthetics. So even in the way now I started selling my business from there, it was very different. You don't just say I'm just selling fish and yeah, it doesn't work very well.
I remember that actually. And I saw the shift for you. I want to ask the last question, and the last question, and I think after that we'll close, and unfortunately we won't have too much time. Actually, I will open it up. Please put it up, put in the chat room any questions you have. If you have any questions, put your hand up. But the last question that I want to ask you guys is, what advice would you give your younger self? If you think about who you were 10 years ago, what did you know that you think is important? I want to ask if there's any questions that we have, any comments we have. Let's put them up now. Any questions, comments that you'd like us to talk about as we do this last round of what is something that you wish you knew when you were younger? And just also to come back and say a very big thank you to you guys for being part of this conversation. We're going to be doing this every week, and we want to use this as a way of celebrating the work that we've done. The last 10 years have been about you guys. The goal of those 10 years was growing you guys. And my biggest joy is seeing the people that you're becoming, and in the spaces that you are having the impact. That ultimately is the job for Lapid. And so we want to make sure that the next few weeks we lift those up. But even just for me to say thank you very much for your availability, for your faithfulness. I have called these people in the last 10 years many times, and they always respond. And so I'm really grateful. Martin serves as one of the mentors in one of the classes. Eric guides in many things. He's part of our prayer team. Kevin, every time I have anything that needs guidance as far as urban planning goes, he's my go-to person. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being Lapid leaders, not just by name, but in reality. And I really, truly celebrate each one of you. And I thank God for the fact that I've gotten a chance to do the last 10 years with you guys. I have now assignments for all of you. The next 10, you all must do work. And I will be knocking on your doors with that. But thank you for the time that you have given here. So your younger self questions. And as we hear the advice you would give their younger self, please feel free to put up questions or comments in the chat room. If you haven't joined Lapid, I want to encourage you to make sure you apply for the upcoming cohort. We have a cohort that we're recruiting for. It's a special cohort to me. It is a cohort that is just for lifting the 10 years. And so we're even actually doing it differently. It's going to have some boot camps and it's going to have it's actually primarily, it has 2 boot camps, and you will get the details when you apply. But it's an intense boot camp that allows us to invest in people who would like to be here in the next 10 years. And so if you're trying to clarify your purpose, if you're trying to figure out if you're feeling lost, if you're trying to figure out what you want to build for yourself, this is a space for you. Please join the upcoming cohort. Kevin, advice to your younger self.
I have 2. So the first one is you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. And I'll give a short story. So we went for one of our retreats, and I think I was irritable and I was feeling confused. Why am I here? What am I doing? And I remember asking Esther, and I used to get very frustrated with small inconveniences. And I remember I asked Esther, Esther, like when you grow up, like, do you still get frustrated, or like does this feeling go away? And I remember you said something so profound. You said, things don't change, how you respond to them is what changes. So I think that's that's something I keep remembering. And the second one is mentors are bridges, they're not barriers. I never used to like mentors because I thought they would tell me what I need to do, but I wish I got mentors sooner because they would guide you to where you want to go.
That's so powerful. What did you, that's the first thing that you said? Please repeat the first one.
The mentors are bridges, they're not barriers.
And the other one was?
The other one was you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and everything is exactly how it's meant to be.
That's so powerful. I think we chase a perfect state, and that's a thing that's common with our education, with our church, with our life experiences. There's this idea of there's a perfect state that you will get to one day, but just that process of understanding I am where I need to be and trusting the process is such a powerful way of thinking through things. So thank you for lifting that up. I love what you said about mentors as bridges. I meet so many people. I was having a conversation with somebody this past week in the space of governance and telling them, please get advisors, strategists. You don't have to do what they tell you. You actually don't. But listening allows you to have more capabilities, more options to work with, which is what a bridge does. A bridge allows you to have an option to go over it. You may choose not to. You may choose to go a different path. But that possibility of somebody serving as a bridge is a powerful way to think about it. So mentors as bridge, not barriers. Powerful. Thank you, Kevin. Eric, younger self?
So to my younger self, the place of mentorship, it can't be emphasized enough. So yeah, that I got the opportunity to join Lapid very early, rather at a very critical stage in my career when I was transitioning from school to the job market. It indeed went a long way in helping me chart the course for the rest of my professional life. Number 2 is, life will always throw, curveballs at you. Like I said, initially I had this place I wanted to be in, but with time and I've been able to find my space and define my career going forward. So there'll be moments of lostness, I would say, if there's such a term, lostness. There'll be moments of lostness, but eventually you'll always find your path. But most importantly, to my younger self, the earlier you find that clarity of your purpose, the better for you.
Mhm.
So you may not necessarily have to go through a lot of meanders of life before you eventually get to where you're supposed to be. Yeah, so those are the three main things for me.
I love that. My mentorship makes all the difference. And the bigger thing about mentorship, well done, it becomes almost like an access, a lifelong access. I get people who still reach out to me many years after Lapid. I still reach out to people who are mentors to me. One of the bigger advisors in Lapid are people who I met 20 years ago. And that's sort of the power of humbling yourself and allowing yourself to have mentors and advisors. It becomes a source of help, not just when you're in the middle of that urgent moment, but it becomes a source of help even for lifelong possibilities. And so it makes all the difference. Curveballs will come, adjust, but also just of clarity of purpose. I think that's a big one, because the earlier, and that there's no formula. It's just doing the work, and then that work then gives you the answers that need to that you can use to get direct you. I remember one of the people who I spent some time with in one of the pillars lead marketplace recently, and hearing what they were doing. And it's easy for mentors and coaches to guide you, and that's one of the bigger things we have within Lapid. We now have a lot of coaches that our young leaders have access to, and as you then spend time with them, they're able to guide you and help you clarify what matters to you. And then therefore, then you choose your path. Hata kama kila mtu anakimbishana na ile anakimbishana nayo, you make peace with yours. And I think that's what you're talking about, the power of clarity of purpose. Mwimbi, younger self?
For me, I think it's just enjoying and appreciating the process, because sometimes we don't relax and try to figure out the way. I think there's this thing of it's called the destination addiction, whereby you think that the next phase will bring you some joy, the thing that you're going to get is going to make you up. So I've come to do a lot of research, because Lapid introduced me into reading. So I've realized that most of the happiness it's just basic science. Whether umekula githeri pale ama samaki, you feel satisfied with that. You need to appreciate what you have, then you try to, as you look for maybe whatever you are wishing for. So I think that's a big part that the world does signal us to always be rushing to the next thing. I think as young people, we need to appreciate that process, the process of life, and enjoy every moment of it.
Absolutely, and I love that. You reminded me of a conversation I had with one of our mentors recently, and he was talking about how today we have a definition of success that's addictive. And we've allowed ourselves to step into that space where there's an addiction of this glorious story that we are all chasing after. And in fact, he gave this example. He's in business, and that when he started, he was told his big goal should be to have 3 helicopters. And he realized he kept chasing and chasing and chasing, and then the pandemic happened and he didn't have the helicopters. Then he asked himself, why in God's name was I chasing a helicopter? What does a helicopter have to do with my life? I will only be in one helicopter after all. I'll only be in one bed. I'll only be in one house. But it's those definitions of success that make us unable to be in moments and really honor moments and dignify moments with our full selves. Because there's this idea of there's a day I will have 3 helicopters, then I'll be happy. There's this day when I will have 3 houses, then I'll be happy. But that whole idea of enjoying the process and redefining what success looks like for you and allowing yourself to be faithful and authentic to that success journey, I think is one of the powerful things that you can do for yourself. We're going to do this conversation another time. I will ask, let me tell you the question I will ask then. I won't ask now. But how you're remaining grounded. There's a program we've introduced recently that's called Crossroads that spends a bit of time now with professionals who have more experience, and still going back to the question of how do you remain grounded? Because I think starting grounded is what you guys are talking about, but how do we remain grounded, and grounded in what's important, which is around leading self, which is around leading marketplace, but ultimately to ask, how am I grounded in the whole idea of leading Africa? And asking the spaces that I have, how am I leveraging on them to be able to push and the continent, the country and the continent to do better. And I want to end with that. And this is actually a lecture for the four of you, including myself. I'm currently doing some podcasts around the Kenya that we want, and I invite you guys to follow. And Melanie will share those podcasts in the link to episode 2, which is one of my favorite, into the chat room. But the reason I'm doing the Kenya that we want is ultimately one of the things that I believe in, and is a big part of what we do in Lapid, is that we cannot be successful if we are not thinking in systemic ways as well. And so the governance question that you raise, ultimately, Kevin, what you raise when you think about the dignity of people, the dignity of cities, that's a governance question. And I want to challenge each one of you to ask, what are you doing as far as the governance of the nation is concerned? Because it does not matter how many hassles Muimbi does. If the governance of this nation is off, his business will never pick up. Atakuwa tu kihaso, which is important, but the taxes will get him stuck. The processes of the government will get him stuck. The bigger question that we constantly must go back to is not just, am I getting successful? Am I succeeding within the marketplace? But what role am I playing in terms of the governance of this country and this continent? That is the challenge that I have for each one of you that I will not spend too much time on today, but is homework for you to go and sit with. I want to close there and just say thank you. I've enjoyed this conversation. Ninajua 9 imefika. I didn't want to go beyond 9. I can't see any chat room questions, but I will open it up for 1 or 2 people to share what your takeaways are, and then we will hand over to Leon to close the session. So maybe let me hear from 1 or 2 people. I can see a lot of comments that Melanie has put, which are takeaways, but I'd love to hear from people. Just what are you picking up from this conversation? What are you going with? And any questions you may have, so that then we may close with that in mind. I want to open it up without picking people, but I will pick though. Caleb, maybe let's go with you first because of time. What's something that stayed with you from this conversation? And then from there, I hand over to Leon.
Thank you, Esther. What an amazing conversation. Actually, the 3 gentlemen have really brought out what Lapid and the impact Lapid has had on their lives. And it's really motivating to just think about the experiences. I was looking at it like launching into the deep, prepared to launch into the deep with that confidence, and you can see the results. So I'm really challenged. I believe that from these experiences and even the participants who have been following, these are the conversations we need to be having almost every day. This is how we're going to change our continent, and especially how we have ended leaders. It all ends in leadership in every space that we are in. So this has really been a wonderful evening, very amazing conversation. I will be here next week very early. I cannot miss. I will be here next week very early.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining and for your comments. Please keep the comments coming, the chat room in the LinkedIn, and please be back next week on Wednesday. That's it from my end. Thank you again, Kevin. Thank you again, Martin. Thank you again, Eric, for joining this conversation. Let's keep these conversations going. I'm looking forward to seeing what we are able to do beyond this. I want to hand over to Leon to be able to close the session for us. Thank you. Leon?
Okay, thank you so much, Esther. Just to reiterate again, thank you so much for just our guest speakers who are in for today. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Martin. And thank you, Kevin, for just sharing your wisdom and just getting to hear from your experience. Just to remind you guys, this is part of our Lapid alumni, and we truly appreciate them coming back to just share their wisdom and also just inspire us as they were inspired. A special thank you to Esther as well for leading the discussion and just also helping set the pace for the next webinars that are coming up. We truly appreciate all of you as well for joining in the session and for staying. Thank you so much. And we are looking forward to the next one. Be on the lookout on our socials for the next announcement for the next webinar. Same time, same place. We'll be so sure to communicate and also very happy to host you guys. As I told you guys, I hope you've been taking notes, but we are really looking forward to engaging with you guys during the next webinar. I think that would be it from me. I would like to wish you guys a wonderful night, and hopefully we'll see each other next week. So signing out, I would like to say good night to each one of you. We are officially done. Thank you so much for joining today's session.